I realize now we have a misconception of death. Some imagine that it creeps up on you, eager for the chance to pounce. Others imagine a cloaked figure following, waiting in the shadows for your time to come. This could not be further from the truth. Let me explain. I didn't realize at the time, but the first signs started when my daughter was almost a year old. It would brighten my day when she would stare into my eyes and smile. Well, when I let my brother Jake hold her, something was off. She would look at him and make a little yelp. She'd then stare straight past him and smile. We all thought it was cute. A week later, my brother passed away in a car accident. To be honest, I didn't connect the two incidents together. When she turned 6, we started to notice this strange behavior. My mother came over to visit for the holidays. My daughter Rose ran to the door and jumped into her arms, excited to see her. "Granny, I miss you." "Who's that?" She was looking through the doorway. I peered out the door, seeing nobody. "Silly girl, go show Granny to her room." But the next morning, she was at it again. As we sat down for breakfast, Rose asked again, "Granny, who are they?" We all paused briefly. It was only the 4 of us: Rose, her mom, her grandma, and me. I stared at her in confusion, but we all let it slide. We started our pre-Christmas family tradition of watching old family videos. The first video started with my dad and my grandpa playing with me as a toddler. Rose looked at the screen and developed a huge smile. "I get it. That's Grandpa and Great-Grandpa." We all nodded. I told her, "Yes, Princess, they both loved you very much." Then she asked, "Why are you guys ignoring them?" We were puzzled and even a little upset, but we let it slide. Who knows what she means? Just indulge her 6-year-old mind. That is, until she asked, "When did Jake get her?" I pulled her aside and told her, "Princess, these kinds of comments can really upset people. We call that insensitive." She frowned. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I was just happy he's here with Granny." The next morning, we all sat down for breakfast. When my mom wasn't out of bed yet, we sent Rose in to wake her up. She returned calmly and told us, "She left with Grandpa, Great-Grandpa, and Jake." I was pissed, to say the least. It's insensitive to speak about 3 close deceased family members like that. I walked into the room and found her cold in the bed. It was terrible, but I couldn't help but notice she was smiling. Several years passed without incident until Rose was 14, when she told us that Granny was here. "She's right there, with Mom." We both looked around. There was nobody else here. We had chalked the previous incident up to a strange coincidence, but were immediately uncomfortable. The next morning, she asked me to talk in private. "Dad, Grandpa and Jake are following Mom around today. What's going on?" "What are you talking about? They're dead, Rose. They can't be following her around." "But I see them. They're all very happy. They keep smiling at her. When we left the room, Grandpa had just hugged her, but you guys all keep ignoring them." I was obviously terrified at this point. We had a similar experience nearly a decade ago. Because of my concern, my wife agreed to take the day off work. I don't know if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy or if it was just impossible to change her fate, but that day, our home was robbed. Typically, our home was empty from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., but my wife was home. When the burglars were startled by her presence, they shot her twice in the abdomen. She didn't survive. Despite the terrible death she suffered, I was told by the officer in charge of the investigation that the first responders found her still smiling. Regardless, I went into a downward spiral of depression. For years, I couldn't sleep without a shit ton of booze. I figured I didn't have much left. I'd probably drink myself to death, but nothing could prepare me for what happened next. Rose told me one morning that Mom was here. I figured I knew the drill by then. It wasn't surprising when the next day she told me, Grandpa, Grandma, and Jake are here too. I began sobbing. I knew my drinking would take its toll on me soon enough. I hadn't even cared either, but now that time was coming. I was terrified. Rose sat me down and gave me a kiss on the cheek. Dad, it's okay. When your time is near, your closest loved ones come. They spend your final days with you to comfort you. That way, you're never alone. When the time comes, they're there to welcome you. It's actually a beautiful thing. I felt encouraged. Thank you, Princess. That means a lot to me. I think I'm ready. I can't wait to see Mom again. Actually, Dad, they aren't here for you. They're actually here to welcome me.
Number 2.
I open my eyes and look around. For 3 glorious seconds, my body feels fine. But they're gone as quickly as they came. Fuck. Why did I fucking drink so much last night? My head is spinning. What time is it? I stumble out of my room and down the hall. Bathroom. I hail to the porcelain god. I wash my hands and drag myself back to my room. Falling back into my bed, a realization hits me. Fuck. My parents are coming for dinner, and the ex is dropping my son off at 10. I fish my phone out of my bag, 9:43 a.m. I walk to the kitchen and take the turkey out of the freezer to defrost, and I preheat the oven. My parents know I can't cook for shit, but I have to give off the impression that I'm a functioning member of society. What the hell happened last night? Raquel and I went to Gingerman's. I'm sure of that. Kyle and Chris stopped by. They bought us round after round of tequila. Fucking tequila. I open my bag and dig out my cigarettes. Empty. Of fucking course. Then we went to Evil Olive. Right? Or did we walk to Hasted? Oh my god, the blow. Why the fuck did I do cocaine last night? I pop a tic-tac and ring the buzzer. I love you so much, baby, but please, for the love of fuck, don't be in a screamy mood today. Mommy ingested a ludicrous amount of drugs and alcohol in order to forget for the night. I open the door to my beautiful baby and the ex. Oh, I miss my little baby boy so much. I grab my son from his father's arms and nuzzle his soft little neck. I wrap him tight in his crochet little white blanket. I'll be back Tuesday at 10. Bye, son. The ex kisses his son's forehead and heads for the stairs. Fuck, am I out of it. Maybe I should cancel dinner. No, I can't do that. They're probably already on the road. At least my baby is sleeping. Thank fuck. Last night's mistake rides fast in my throat. I lay my baby on the counter and rush to the bathroom. By this point, it's just stinging yellow gunk. But better out than in, right? I splash water on my face. Phone rings. Hi, Jess. We're running a bit early. We'll be there in about 2 hours. Hope you don't mind. What are you making for dinner? Hey, Mom. No, that's fine. Fuck. No, it's not. I have nothing ready. We're having turkey. Take your time. Call me when you're close. Love you. All I want to do is sleep. Take some Advil and sleep. I knew I shouldn't have gone out last night. I hope Raquel made it home safe. How did I even get home? I can feel a splitting headache coming on as I pop the turkey into the oven. 2 hours. I can take a half-hour nap and still have time to get things in order. I carry my silently sleeping son to his room and lower him into the crib. I wobble to my bed, pop my headphones in, put on some slow-ass Radiohead song and drift away. I have the strangest dream. There's a knock at my door. 2 policemen. They tell me Raquel was murdered last night and they need to bring me down to the station. Hours of interrogation. They found my prints on her thighs and breasts, and my lipstick on her neck. She'd been speared with a stick in through her vagina and out through the top of her head. They showed me the body. I wake up to the doorbell. I check my phone. 5 missed calls. 3 p.m. Shit! I ring the buzzer and open the door. God, I'm so sorry. I had a rough night and I stammer. Don't worry, honey. We were young once too. I see the turkey's cooking. I can start on some potatoes. Thank you, Mama. I kiss her cheek and hug my dad. Now where's that beautiful baby boy? Well, he's sleeping, but I'm sure he'd love to see his grandpa anyway. While my parents take off their coats, I grab 2 Advil from the cabinet and swallow them dry. Come on, Dad. Okay, no more getting fucked up the night before a parental visit. I feel like shit. I open the door and turn on the lights in my son's room. My father hobbles over to the crib and, smiling, pulls back the blanket. Jess, why is there a turkey in the crib?
Number 3.
His face never changes. It's pale white. His eyes are gray, empty, wide, so fucking wide, I can't take my own eyes off them. And because I can't, I feel them painfully dry up, just as his should. But they don't. He never closes them. He's always watching. His smile, that God-forsaken smile, just like his eyes, so impossibly wide, his teeth aren't touching. It's an open smile. I can see the black pit where his throat begins, always waiting for something sinister to crawl out. His teeth clamp down just as I think I can see something moving behind them. They're sharp, but why are they spotted with red? He's always there. His aberrant long fingers leave my window streamed up in their shape. He'll stroke the glass a few times, but that's only before he'll start impatiently tapping it with each of his 5 individual yellow pungent nails. Consecutive taps starting from pinky to thumb. He's waiting for me to look away, but I can't. What will he do if I look away? I can't sleep. I might not make it until morning if I fall asleep now. Just keep watching. He won't do anything if I keep watching. My eyes are getting heavy. I don't know how much longer I can stay awake. My lids are fluttering so much, it's like watching an old film. Watching him fade, slowly in and out of frame. Black. I've closed my eyes. I realized after a mere 2 seconds, but it seems it's too late. I'm staring at an empty window. I could see where he huffed his warm breath against the thin, transparent panel, but it didn't last in the cold. The formed condensation slowly disappears, as does my previous minuscule sense of security. Even if I'd been tired, I'm awake now, trembling. My body feels like it's both been set aflame and buried with ice. I feel so numb that I can't move. My wide eyes form tears and I start to cry. I can't stop, though I'm as silent as I can manage. My teeth grit to hold in my pathetic whimpers, the strain proving too much for my head. It's throbbing with pain. I want to cry, but I can't. I keep my eyes open, starting forward from the wooden wall I was backed up into. I keep my eyes open, staring forward from the wooden wall I was backed up into, glaring to the window. Being able to see him there had been some source of comfort, but now he's gone. Where is he? I sit, tugging my knees close to my pounding chest. I bring up my nerve-rattling hands to bury my eyes into them, rubbing them dry. For a second, I can't see. I feel something brush against my shoulder, leaving my heart to sink and my cries to drown silent. I'm hesitant, but I remove my hands from my eyes until I stare into my lap. It's so quiet that I can hear my own shuddering breath as if it were the loudest thing I'd ever been able to hear. I eventually turn my head to look to the floor at my side. Nothing. Click. Just when I thought I'd been feeling my worst, I let out another baffled whimper, having a hand swipe away a single tear that sprinted along my flustered cheek. My eyes move across the floor and towards the door leading to the passageway. It's cracked open. I wait for it to be pushed open further, the anticipation making me nauseous. Ah, there. Pale but dirty and familiar aberrant fingers protruded from the side of the slightly opened entryway. They tapped onto the wood just above the golden turning handle, consecutively from pinky to thumb. I watched his fingers with eyes that grow dim. Although I'm scared, I've accepted my fate. I can't be saved. I muster a sarcastic short laugh at my misfortune. Softly banging the back of my head onto the wall I leaned back against. I give up. I close my eyes.
Number 4.
So, me and my mother and sister traveled a few states over to where my grandma lives. This is the first time we visited her in many years. Probably about 4 or 5. When we did, we stayed at a hotel due to her house being under renovations. The last time I actually stayed at her house was when I was little. Probably 1st or 2nd grade. I don't remember much. Anyways, my uncle basically lives with her and also takes care of her. There's 4 bedrooms in the house, if you count the basement, which is furnished with a bathroom, so it's practically a room. My grandma has her room, my mom took the basement, and my uncle gave my sister his room, so that left the guest room to me. This is basically the only room in the house that doesn't have a TV, radio, computer, or anything like that. In fact, it's so old-fashioned looking that it's creepy. So the first day, everything is great. I had a bit of a hard time falling asleep, but that can be expected from being away from home. The second night, last night, is when it happened. I fell asleep fine at around 10 or 11, and then I woke up and remember the clock telling me it's 3:21 a.m. This isn't very unusual because I tend to wake up a lot in the middle of the night. Didn't think much of it, and then I shut my eyes, attempting to go back to sleep. Then I heard the door creak. I thought maybe it was my little sister, because she frequently does climb into bed with me. But when I opened my eyes, the door wasn't even opened, even though I know I heard it. I shut my eyes again. I heard the creaking again. I opened my eyes, and that's when I almost pissed myself. I don't know how to fully describe it, but I saw a girl. She wasn't fully there. Like she was translucent. God, that sounds so cheesy when I say it, but that's the only way I can explain it. Her skin was white and kind of shiny. It reminded me of the color of the moon almost. Her hair was dark, but for a moment, I actually did think it was my sister, because she also has dark hair, but I quickly realized it wasn't. The first thing I did was snap and turn on the lamp as quickly as I could. Poof. She's gone. Stupidly turned the lamp back off, and she's there again, in the same exact position, as if nothing happened. From the position in my bed, I could only see her head and torso. She kind of just stared at me, floating further into the room. I cowered with the covers pulled up to my chest. I wanted to hide, but at the same time I was fascinated, kind of in awe. She kept floating until the rest of her body was revealed, and I guess she was wearing a white dress, but it was the same exact color of her skin, so I don't really know. It covered her feet. I really don't know what I thought. Maybe that she was going to try and speak to me, or eat me. I've never been into this kind of stuff, so I have no idea. There's this closet in the room, kind of a storage closet. My grandma has like 5 deflated pool floaties in there from when she used to have an above ground pool. The female ghost kept floating, right on past me to the opened closet. The closet light was also off, so she kind of disappeared into the darkness. Then I heard this crinkling noise, like she was playing with the floaties or something. I sat there frozen for about 5 minutes, and she didn't come back. I ran out of the room and got into bed with my sister. I didn't fall asleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my mom, and surprisingly enough, she believed me, but I didn't know what to do about it. I was going to ask my uncle since he's lived here way longer than any of us have, but he was helping his friend out with something and wouldn't be back until the next day. So I tried to forget about it for the rest of the day, but it was always there, in the back of my head. Later, my sister and mom went out to get dinner and I stayed home with my grandma. Tried telling her about it, but she has hearing problems and kept asking me to repeat myself, so I eventually gave up. And then I opened a drawer, looking for a pen, and I found this picture. This picture is the creepiest picture I've ever seen in my life. I don't even know, it's so odd. It's this girl. And I guess it could be the same girl I saw, but I'm not really sure, other than the fact that she has dark hair. It's in sepia color, and her eyes are closed and her head is tilted up. Then there are these weird fucking faces above, like clown faces, but they looked more like masks or something. I have no fucking clue. I'm completely spooked. I asked my grandma about it, and she had no idea where it came from, which didn't surprise me because she's a bit senile. Also, on the back of the photo, it says the word look. Like when you look at pictures your parents have and they wrote the date or whatever on the back. It's written really casually like that. To this day, I still have no idea what to make of the situation.
Number 5.
If there's one piece of advice I can give anyone, it's don't take the cheap way out. No matter how good it seems, something about that decision will bite you in the ass one day. You might be lucky, and it may only be a mosquito bite. But if you're not, it could be like a great white shark bite. For me, I wasn't so lucky, obviously, or I wouldn't be saying this. A couple of months ago, I got in a very bad accident. So bad my car got totaled almost beyond recognition. My insurance company gave a decent amount of money to me for it, but money was tight for me, and I needed a car fast. I went to the place everyone looking for a deal goes. Craigslist. For a day, I kept looking for a deal I couldn't say no to. I needed a decent running car for cheap, but it also had to be reliable. All the sellers at the time were asking for fair prices, too fair for me to get them. I was about to give up for the night when I came across the deal I was looking for. This guy, Robert, was selling a 2001 Toyota Camry with 100,000 miles on it, while claiming to run smoothly, for a damn good price. I contacted Robert, and he told me I could test drive it the next day. I took a taxi out there and gave the car a good old town drive. Let me tell you, it ran like it was brand new. No complaints at all. It seemed almost too good to be true. So when I got back, I asked what the deal with the car was. No matter how hard I pushed, he said nothing was wrong with it. He seemed pretty genuine about it the entire time, so I believed him and bought it on the spot. I had the car for about a month without incident. Then, one night, I was driving home from a long day of work. It was about 1 in the morning, so as you can imagine, the roads were almost desolate. I was smoking a cigarette with my windows down, just listening to the wind fly into the car. I remember being stopped at a red light when a chill ran down my spine. This made me very uneasy, but I blew it off as my exhaustion. The light turned green. I began to accelerate. Then, someone, or something, whispered ever so quietly, a phrase in my ear. The sound of the engine mixed with the wind made it almost inaudible. No cars were around, so I slammed on my brakes, bringing my car to a complete stop. I waited a couple of seconds for maybe another whisper, or anything really. Nothing. No incident occurred for the rest of the ride. The next 2 weeks went by without anything like this happening again. I completely forgot about it. That is, until something happened again. It was pouring rain while I was at work, and it was very slow, so my boss let me smoke a cigarette in my car. When I got in my car, I got the same chill once again. Instantly, I remembered my last experience. I sat there in complete silence, waiting for something to happen. About 30 seconds later, my car got filled with the smell of freshly shot fireworks. It got so bad, so quick, it made me start coughing like crazy, gagging. I got out of my car and ran back inside. The look on my face must have been far from normal because my boss came up to me to make sure everything was alright. I told him about the smell, and he said the only thing he could think of was some kids might have fucked with my car. We went out to check it out, and this time, the smell was gone. He said he would check the security cameras later on, but he never saw anything. I tried to blow it off again, but this time I couldn't find a reasonable explanation. After an hour straight of thinking about what happened, I tried to give Robert a call. Unfortunately, this guy had the nerve to cancel his phone. About a week later, I had just gotten to an apartment to deliver a pizza. It was going pretty routine. The guy was cool, gave me a nice tip. I even had a good conversation with him. As I was about to wrap things up and head out, I noticed something caught his attention in the parking lot. "Hey, you drove that Camry here, right?" he asked. Yeah, why do you ask?" I replied. "I think there's someone in your car." I looked at my car and sure enough, I saw a girl sitting in shotgun. She had black hair, was very pale, so pale it looked almost like she was glowing, and wearing a white dress. Shit, she broke into my car. Call the cops. For a few seconds, I thought, I knew I wasn't crazy, and I finally got the person fucking with me. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. When I was on the 3rd floor, the girl was looking forward while I was facing her side. I lost sight of her going down the stairs to the 2nd floor, but saw her as soon as I got down them, and let me tell you, I nearly fainted. She was staring directly at me with a smile from ear to ear, but that wasn't the worst part. Her eyes. Well, they were something else. They were normal-looking blue eyes, except to the iris was white instead of black. But something else about them that I still can't point out. It was mesmerizing. I stood there for an unknown amount of time, staring deep into her eyes. The next thing I know, I feel a tap on my shoulder, breaking my trance. It was the guy I delivered the pizza to, informing me the police were on their way. He asked why I was standing there, so I explained. But when we looked at the car, she was gone. The police ended up coming. We filled the report. They did a quick search through my car to see if there were any signs of a break-in. Unfortunately, there was none. Everything was in place exactly as I left it. The police said they would check the cameras and inform me if they saw anything. They still haven't talked to me. Over the next couple weeks, I would hear the damn whispering again. but only when my car or something in my environment made a loud noise. At first, it was occasional, but by the second week it was there at almost every loud sound. I could also make out two separate voices, one of a man and one of a woman. I still couldn't understand what they were saying. That is, until I was on my way home tonight. A few minutes from my house, I got the chill again. I knew it was coming. This time, I heard it ever so clear.
It's your turn now.
I felt her ice-cold breath run down my neck. In my peripheral, I could see her reflection in my rearview mirror, waiting for me to turn and look at her. She kept whispering those damn words in my ear, almost creating a layer of ice on my neck. The longer she whispered, the more I felt like I was being pulled into her influence. Finally, I got home, and I fucking ran inside. I've locked myself in my room, but I'm starting to think that was a mistake. If I were to look at my window, I could see my car, and the whispering. I'm starting to hear it again. It's three separate voices now. Two girls and one guy. They keep telling me to look at the car. Just one more time. Really quick, just for a second. Maybe. No. Yes. Maybe I should look. Just real quick. Not even for a second. I mean, what harm could it do? Besides, I've seen one. What about the others? They need love too. Just one quick look.
Number 6.
We see the same faces passing by every day, my faithful wife and I. Ghosts walking by our windows, their faces gaunt and pale, and their speech slurred, almost hauntingly so. They held up signs, although most of which read similar messages. Will work for food, feed me, spare change. You had to feel sorry for the beggars and homeless on the streets when you run a respected neighborhood diner. Their faces unwashed. We thought that we could not just feed them for free. Then regular patrons would always demand the same treatment, that it would be unfair and unjust. Yet, at the same time, we couldn't just leave them out there to rot either. We had to help them. We looked at the picture of our son, who went and never returned from war, and that was how our idea struck. The next day, when the night was going by lazily, we let this one man in. He introduced himself as Kyle. Kyle was one of those people. He had been sleeping in alleyways in the outskirts of town for years after he was laid off and had lost his home, unable to make a living for himself with how bad the economy was doing. He ordered a brisket, the diner's specialty. In the kitchen, as she was preparing the man's food, my wife asked me if what we were doing was right, if this was the way to truly guide them. After a long discussion, I assured her that our friend Kyle would be thankful for us helping him along his way. Kyle's eyes lit up as we brought the plate out, and he began to chow down quickly. He was a hungry one. We wondered when was the last time he had had a good meal. His mouth was almost mechanical in how quickly it took in and chewed and swallowed each bite amount. With a small smile, he thanked us for the wonderful meal. We just smiled on, out of courtesy more than anything else. He blacked out and was later pronounced dead by the police. We covered it up well. After all, it turned out that the homeless man had a fatal disease and could have died any day. A bit of luck on our side there. The second, the third, the fourth. All these wretched souls that were set free. Free of the suffering from homelessness, disease, and starvation. Our efforts were put at rest after one certain customer came in. It still haunts us to this day. Not a moment goes by where we think about what we had done that one evening. He told us that his name was Jason as I held the door open for him. He was a very scuffy man, in ragged and dirty clothing. It was in his eyesore just staring at the poor son of a bitch for too long. He needed help, and we were the ones to set him on that path to a better place, a special and celestial kind of home up high. God was calling him, to take him home with wide, open arms. I felt it in my bones, in my blood. We gave him a big meal of steak to eat, and like the rest, he did not seem to notice that it had been spiked with poison. Oh, how he loved it. He told us how it reminded him of his mother's cooking when he was a child. We smiled in unison and waited for his freedom. And soon it came, as always. We watched his eyes close for the very last time. The investigator, per usual, came as soon as possible. Surprisingly still, they had not suspected a single thing despite the bodies piling up. At least, until we turned ourselves in. The man was apparently an amnesiac after a tragedy a few years back. The doctor, looking him over, noticed that the slum was wearing dog tags around his throat, and my heart sank as he read the name. I was confused at first, but then it struck home. It turned out that our poor, dear son never did die in the war, after all.